All right, welcome to City Council and City Hall. This City Council regular meeting agenda for Monday, April the 10th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. We'll call to order. If you all would, please join us by rising and bowing your heads as City Attorney Darren Coker is going to lead us in our invocation, followed by Councilmember Cade leading us in our pledges.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, just come to you this evening, and we just thank you, one, for just a wonderful weekend and a beautiful Sunday that you provided us with to celebrate Easter, and we just thank you for that. We thank you for your undeserved mercy and grace that you show us. And Father, as we come together this evening, we just ask that you bless the staff, the City Council, and the members of this community who coming together to conduct city business. Father, that we never take this process lightly and understand the gravity of the decisions that are being made. And so, Father, we just ask for wisdom and discernment on our City Council as they weigh those decisions this evening, and that you give them the strength to make those decisions that they need to. And we just ask that you bless our evening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
All right, thank you for that. And as mentioned, I hope you all had a wonderful Easter celebration yesterday and this weekend. But I want to thank each and every one of you for making your way out to the City Council meeting tonight as we progress through this agenda. With that, we'll move forward in the agenda to roll call and certification of quorum. Madam Secretary, I will certify we have a quorum present as all members of the council are present and accounted for. With that, we'll move to citizens' comments. I know we have several comments on a particular agenda item. Do we have any general? Okay. So when we get to that agenda item, we will call on you individually to be able to offer your comments. So with that, we will move to public hearing number one. Martin, if you would, read into the record the request or the reason for the public hearing and move to the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. So for this first public hearing, this is a request by Clint Byram, applicant on behalf of Crosspoint Church, owner, for approval of a conditional use permit for a sheltered care facility on approximately 1.4 acres of land located within the general business district. This property is generally located at the northeast corner of 1134 Old Alvin Road. So here we have a aerial image with the zoning overlay indicating the general business district for the property, which is a portion of the Crosspoint Church. And then we have a variety of residential, be it R1, R2, on all three sides of the greater Crosspoint Church property. The specific future land use category for the subject property is low density residential. And then you can see a list of all the various subdivisions and a little bit of commercial warehousing that's down Knapp Road. Generally a residential feel for this area. So some history of this property. The church was platted in 2001 and developed in 2002 with a 10,000 square foot building. Additional buildings and improvements were added between 2013 and 2019. The proposed improvement on the site is shown on this overall plan. You can see a single building with a fenced-in area and then some additional parking. This is a floor plan showing basically a enhanced residential structure. It has a dining, living room, bedrooms, visitation areas, and then a large covered porch. On the second floor is generally an attic and some finished storage areas. These are the elevations that were provided through the applicant. And then here are just a few images of the subject property. So the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted their public hearing of the subject conditional use permit at their regular meeting on March 20th. During the public hearing section, there was one person who spoke against the request, and their concern in general was about the noise and property value depreciation. After comments and discussions from the commission, they voted unanimously for approval of the request with the condition recommended by staff, and that was that the proposed use be developed in substantial conformance with the building size and character as presented in the applicant's exhibits. With that, Mayor, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you for that, Martin. I see Mr. Byram here present. Do you have a presentation for council tonight?
Need my name and address and all that? All right. Clint Byram, 3904 Conroe Lake Court, Pearland, Texas 77581. I don't have a presentation per se. I think staff did an excellent job presenting the project. The floor plan that was shown there is for the home. That's exactly what is intended to be built there. So there's no deviation from that floor plan. I will say that the Isaiah 117 house, this would be one of close to 50 that have been built across the nation to step into the gap in the foster community. I know there's some individuals here this evening that'll speak more to that. I just wanted to take a brief moment of my time to let you guys know I'm here. In case you had any questions you had for me, I'm happy to answer them. Also, kind of in the spirit of your proclamations, Mr. Mayor, I believe that recognition of a job well done is something that should be done when you have the opportunity. And I'll tell you guys the same that I told Planning and Zoning. Working with your staff on this entire process, getting through this CUP and getting us to here has been phenomenal. My family is a second generation land developer home builder. I've worked in the city of Pearland a little over a decade ago. And if any of you were involved with the city at that time, it was a little rough to get things done through the permitting process. And I know that's been an effort that council and staff has undergone to make that a more streamlined process and make it more user-friendly for the public. And that's exactly what my experience has been. So I just wanted to let council know your staff is doing an excellent job in this regard. And I'll let the others that are here tonight to speak more specifically to the heart behind this house. And I'm here in case you guys need me.
Thank you for that. We will move forward in our public hearing to those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. You can go to the podium, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. I know at one point, if we just have one person to speak, we may grant 5 minutes to that one person. So second request for those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, made a lot of bad decisions in my life, made a really, really good one in 1996 when I moved to Pearland. I made it my home, and it has changed my life.
Name and address for the record, please.
I am sorry. My name is Tom Allen, and my address is 1134 Old Alvin Road. That is the address of Crosspoint Church that I'm representing here tonight. Thank you, Mayor Cole, for helping me. We simply want to give away some of our land that a home can be built on. Right at 500 child abuse cases happened in Brazoria County last year. Many of those children faced the worst day of their life because they were taken out of the only home they'd known, even though it was an abusive home. They were taken by a stranger, and they were taken to either sleep on the floor of an office or sleep in a motel room with a perfect stranger. What we would like to see is we think we as Pearland are much, much better than that. We can't fix everything in the state of Texas, but we can fix what happens in Brazoria County. We'd like to have the opportunity to just give our land and allow this community to build a home where when a child faces the worst day of their life, and they've been abused and they've been taken by CPS. And by the way, CPS does a great job. They're set up for success in protecting those children, but they're really not set up for success in making that child feel better. We believe that if they can walk into a home and say, hey, we have some pajamas for you. Do you need a snack? Would you like to take a shower? Let us show you your bedroom. Would you like to sit up and talk? We think we can make the worst day of their life a better day, a little bit better. If anyone is afraid of children taken into foster care being in their community, I would just like to say, Mayor Cole, Woody, you two should be more concerned than anyone, because on any given Sunday at Crosspoint Church, there are dozens of foster children running around there. And I think you feel pretty safe. So we would like the opportunity to make a place for them, to give them a home, and to do something good. And my idea of success tonight would not be that you would just vote unanimously, but that each of you would find someone and say, how can we help you do this? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll make one other call for those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. Miss Mandy making her way. Please name and address for the record, please.
Mandy Benedicts, 3102 Rainbow Court, Pearland, Texas, 77584. Since 2004, I have lived in this community, worked in this community, and I am raising my son in this community. I came here for one reason, but have stayed for many others. One being that time and time again, Pearland shows up when people are in need, when disaster strikes. Like when Hurricane Harvey had people mucking out homes of complete strangers, or the time a missing little boy with autism filled the Dad's Club with people volunteering to search for him. And after the Santa Fe school shooting, when a local Pearland restaurant organized a fundraiser to support the families, even when it's not our community, we show up. Pearland now gets the opportunity to practice this giving spirit by opening up our community to Isaiah 117, a home built for no other reason than to bring hope and healing and care and compassion to kids on what is most likely the worst day of their young lives. Undoubtedly, the children welcomed into an Isaiah 117 home are profoundly changed. But I can't help but think of the impact on the person that will voluntarily take care of the lawn each month, and the person who will donate food or prepare meals in the kitchen of the home, or the person that will fix the plumbing when it needs fixing. And how about the overworked CPS worker that will be offered a cup of coffee and a beautiful office to work from while a loving volunteer pours all of their attention onto a young person that just hours or even minutes before felt disposed of, terrified, and alone? Who will be changed more? I say this is exactly what kinship is, when the line between who is being served and who is doing the serving can't even be recognized. And all the heart and soul on display in an Isaiah 117 house will definitely seep into our community. Those volunteers won't leave the same. It's impossible. Many today are wearing shirts that proclaim one of the driving messages that this organization wants to send these kids: love, you are not alone. It's a nice saying on a t-shirt, but a vote for yes tonight gives life to these words, puts action behind the message, and proclaims that anyone entering our city should never feel alone. And allowing this home in our city is one more way that we can put this belief into action. As we stand here tonight, everyone that needed to say yes to move this project forward has. The Isaiah 117 team, both national and local, Crosspoint Church by donating their land, all of the people that have donated the money and that was needed to make it happen, and now it's your turn. As the representatives of a city that prides itself not by just proclaiming to folks you are not alone, but by doing the work to back those words up, I beg you to say yes tonight and allow Pearland to once again be a light that pierces some very dark situations for generations to come.
Thank you for those words, Mandy. And I'll make one last appeal of those wishing to speak for or against this proposal. proposed request. There we go. Thank you and welcome tonight.
My name is Stacy Casey, 4119 Galloway Drive. So I'm a CPS worker, and this home is absolutely needed in our county. Though, as a worker, when we have to remove a child, we know we have to because they're in a bad situation. But like people said, we have to take them to our office or sometimes in our car or a hotel, and it would make a world of difference in a child's life. Like they said, the worst day of a child's life, to take them to a home, to feed them, give them dry clothes, give them a bubble bath, just make it so that we can lavishly love them. So a vote yes would be an incredible vote for not just CPS workers, but for these children.
Thank you for that. All right, do I see anybody else that wants to move towards the podium? Seeing none, we'll move forward in our public hearing to City Council for questions, comments, concerns from council. Anybody got anything? Mr. Owens?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, living here in Pearland, you find out one thing, that Pearland is a giving city. You know, the people that live here. And I got a call the other day and won't know if we was going to do the King and Queen contest in Pearland, and that went out a few years ago. But the last time that we done it, it was Nito Christian and myself was running, and over the weekend we raised $165,000 just for King and Queen. And what we did, we gave it to different charities, divided up and give it to different charities. And but you know, again, it's just Pearland is a lot of giving people, and highly respect all of them. I think that's one of the reasons that people move to into Pearland. There's nothing else but the people here that are good people to come and to be a part of the community. So, but you know, you just can't say enough for the people that live here. And like Mayor Reed used to say, that every time one person moves in, it makes our city that much better. That's true.
Good comments. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate everybody being here. I had no idea that this was an issue. I guess I never thought beyond what happens to kids once they're removed from these situations. So I want to say thanks for, illustrating what the use of this is. It's really eye-opening for me that I, again, never thought about that. I have in the past been fairly critical of any type of establishment like this that serves vulnerable populations. We had an applicant once that came in, Mayor, that was wanting to open an adult daycare type. And I have family members who were in those situations, and it just it gives me a lot of pause. I want to make sure that we have the right people running those organizations. But there are faces here in the audience, and some who spoke, and some I know you, and some I don't, but I know of you, where the children of my life, I would trust with you, not 100%. I know it's mathematically impossible, but 5,000%. And just, I think this is wonderful, and thank you for bringing this to Pearland. I think it's absolutely not just needed here. I think, having us, giving us another opportunity to brag about great things that are happening here. I'm just, really happy that y'all are giving us this opportunity to vote for this evening. So thanks, Mayor.
Mr. Koza?
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Allen, Mr. Byram, and the volunteers that are here tonight, really appreciate y'all stepping up to fill this void in Brazoria County as well as in the city of Pearland. So I will be in support of this tonight, but just want to tell y'all thank you very much.
Ms. Kate?
I will be in support of this also. I've been a teacher for a long time, I think 23 or 24 years, but I've had to call CPS several times. It's an agonizing decision to make. Even if it is what's best, it's still difficult. And to know that something like this is going to be there for those kids is makes it an easier decision. It's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. So I appreciate all of y'all for being here and for making this possible. Thank you so much.
Barry?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you very much. And Tom and Clint, thanks again for everybody that's a part of this. Mandy, I've known you guys, and I want to reiterate some of the same comments. You know, y'all have been givers of this community for so long, and givers to that population of individuals that couldn't otherwise help themselves. So I want to thank you for all your community service and applaud you for that. Obviously, I'm going to be in support of this because I've always supported kids, and ever since I went to that event at Memorial Stadium in Allen ISD last year to learn about Isaiah House and what it is Isaiah House does, and it found a special place in my heart. And so I wish you all the best, and thank you for stepping up.
Well said. Any other questions, comments? Carbone?
Say ditto. Yeah, 100% support. I don't know how much of my money has already gone to y'all, but if you know my wife, you understand.
Right.
And make sure you come back as it progresses and you have more fundraisers. Public comments are always open to you to give us updates and try to shake us down for some more money.
Done. I'm going to wrap up comments and then close the public hearing. This month happens to be Child Abuse Awareness Month, and I've got more than my fair share of wristbands on this month, plus I'm wearing a blue suit for the event. I also have on my Isaiah 117 bracelet. I wear it almost every day, and it's a reminder of those who are extremely vulnerable in our community. Last week, attended an event at the school district offices, United for Kids. And I got to see a room full of people and organizations that absolutely love our kids. And during that event, I made this comment that children in our community are probably, if not, they are the most valuable resource that we have. The potential, and in Pearland, we have roughly 130,000 people, and the population 18 and under, generally speaking, is around 28%. Do the math. It's 36,000 people that are 18 and under that live in our community. And the potential of 36,000 people growing to be adults and growing in their ideas, growing in their future, and what that means for our world, what that means for our community is unfathomable as to what their potential is. And yet, as a country, we will put gold and silver in a vault and protect it at all costs. What are we doing to protect our children? And so this is one step. It's not the step, it's not the only step, and it's not the last step, but it is a step in the right direction, protecting those individuals who are extremely vulnerable in a position and in a state that they are in at that moment. So I want to applaud. I'm going to recognize a couple of people. Christy Severe and Mona Cavler, raise your hands and wave back there. The heart of Isaiah 117, bringing that to Brazoria County, was born in you. And you guys saw it. You seized on the moment. You reached out to Isaiah 117 and their organization and said, we need one of these here. I pray for the day that we have several of these throughout the county. I'd like for Brazoria County and the city of I love the fact that the city of Pearland is leading this way, but I want to show and hopefully that Brazoria County will lead the way in the great state of Texas. That we can do things better, we can do things with compassion, we can do things the right way for our kiddos. And again, through no fault of their own, they're being removed from their home and in a situation like this. So I want to thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. I told Christy and Mona from the moment that I heard about it, count me in to support. Like the Mayor Pro Tem said, donated money already to the cause and will continue to be there along the way. Give us updates as to how it goes. I can't wait to cut a ribbon and be there for all that grand ceremony as children come through and can't wait to hear stories of lives impacted in a positive way. And Mandy, as you always say, these kids enter our system and they enter Rise Mentoring and all of that. And it's the right thing to do to step up and be there for them. We don't have to know everything in depth about their life. They just want somebody to be there. And now they'll have the opportunity in a home, not on an office floor or a dark hotel room. So thank you for that. With that, we'll close this docketed public hearing. Mr. Koza, if you'd read new business item number 1 into the record, please.
Yes, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, Resolution R2023-CUP 23-07. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report and questions, comments from City Council. So with that, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
I think there was a clarification. Was there a condition added on at all?
Was there?
There was a staff and planning and zoning recommended
Okay,
condition.
back up to it. Oh, okay, number 1 at the bottom.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I need to add that to
Yeah.
that. All right. So consideration possible action, Resolution R2023-CUP 2307, with the condition the proposed shall be developed in substantial conformance with the building size and character as presented in the applicant's exhibit. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second, adding that in, just making it into the motion rather than an amending motion. Any questions, comments on the condition? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Kamkar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Owens.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, congratulations, folks. All right, moving forward in our agenda, consent agenda, Mr. Kamkar, if you would present that, consent agenda items A through L with the exceptions of B, D, and L.
H also.
H and
I'd like to
H.
pull H.
And I.
I think I got that. All right. Make a motion to consideration possible action of the consent agenda with the exceptions of items B, D, H, L, and I. So moved.
We have a motion and a second. I think I got all those numbers marked as well. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote. Did you get the letters? Okay.
Member Kamkar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Owens,
Aye.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, we'll move to new business items. New business continued. Mayor Pro Tem, would you present new business item number 2?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, second and final reading of ordinance 1625. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. This is the second reading of the ordinance to update our impact fees, which we are required to do at least every 5 years. So our impact fees, what those do is they allow us to put approximately 50% of the cost of new capacity in our water and wastewater system onto new development that's actually using that capacity. Without the impact fees, or if we adopt a lower than the maximum impact fee, our existing businesses and existing residents then would see higher water and sewer rates. So the recommendation is to adopt the maximum rate, the combined water and sewer fee of $9,625. A couple of things with this year, we are moving to a meter size based impact fee, which is more transparent to development. And then we are also incorporating the recommendations from the SEAC as well as the City Council from the first reading. And those include no impact fee charged for separate dedicated fire line meters. And then if a combo fire line and domestic line meter is proposed, we'll require the engineer to do a calculation of what portion of that is for the domestic use, and we'll only charge the fee on that portion. And then that businesses do not have to pay at the time of permitting. They can pay over time. Excuse me, the requirement is for paying still at the time of permitting, but we will allow them to pay over time. However, it must be paid in full prior to getting a certificate of occupancy. So just one additional note that's not part of this, but we are looking to bring our non-development fees back to council to address the fees we talked about a little bit last go around and are associated with this from a standpoint of if a residence based on the configuration of the lot needs a longer line from the main, requiring a larger meter to get the pressures at the house required, then we would take a look at that, and assuming that the house, the number of fixtures and the size of the house would be normally supported by a 5/8" meter, we would only charge the 5/8" meter base rate and the 5/8" meter impact fee for that particular residence. So we'll fix that in our non-development fees, which we're working on those to bring those back in the next couple of meetings. So with that, Mayor, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Real quick, Trent, the fee that you mentioned there was $96.25. I think there was a transposal of number. I think it's $92.65. Can we verify that? I know in the letter from Planning and Zoning, when you add the two together, it's $92.65. I just want to make sure.
Okay, we may have it transposed then.
Right. There's a water impact fee. This is according to Planning and Zoning. Water impact fee of $3,926. Wastewater impact fee of $5,339. So just want to make sure that
I'm looking for it in the actual study to verify.
That's
number 2.
I think the AR just had a transposed number. And it's in the presentation as $92.65 as well.
Page 35 in the online packet, table 4.5.
So $92.65, yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to verify that for the record.
Thank you.
All right. With that, any questions, comments, concerns from council? Mr. Gamcar?
Thank you. Can we pull up the packet item on this? The graph showing all of the different cities. I want to say it's this big document, it's page 378 of 653, but on the slide deck, I think it's
slide deck. It's 36 of 67 out of the.
Yeah, the individual item is page 36. If you've got that, Josh.
Bingo. That's great. So I think we talked a little bit about this last week. Just it expressed concerns. This is a rather dramatic jump in our fee rate. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Trent, but new builds, as soon as they run through our process, they will then be asked to pay this fee at some point in that between here and when they, I guess, open for business.
Once this is adopted and goes into effect, anybody that plats their property after that will be subject to these fees.
Let me ask a question. What about a replat?
Replat? How do we apply replats to? Do they go under the new fee?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I still just have heartburn about it. I think I expounded on that, but I just don't feel this is the appropriate time. It wouldn't be prudent to raise this fee, especially on folks who want to come and do business here. Or in the case of some folks, if they're replatting and they're already here, two groups can see the same thing. It's hard enough to do business right now. You've got a rising interest rate environment. Cost of materials is up. It's just a challenging environment, and I just don't feel that this is the best time. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we only raise up to 8,000, something less than what we have now.
Saying no second. What?
Make a motion that we adjust the number down from the stated, I guess, 9265 or 9256 to 8,000. Give our businesses a break.
Don't we have, just for clarification, last time, if I recall, we have to break it down into the individual amounts. Is that correct? Or
Yes, I mean, if we're expecting to actually end up anticipating a second to vote on this, we would have to further amend that once again if we were going to actually get to that point. That is correct, and break it out into the water and sewer.
We have a motion to place a lower impact fee on the table for consideration, and ultimately, by law, we would have to have that broken out, X for water, X for sewer. Do we have a second to even entertain a lower impact fee? Seeing none, back to the original motion. So again, as stated, the last time we looked at this, a couple of things. If we did not adopt a fee tonight, when does our current impact fees expire? Let me finish my line of questioning. It's going to answer your question. If we did not adopt this fee tonight, we have a current impact fee schedule that we've been using for the last 5 years. When does it expire, and what happens when it expires?
So it expires right around this time. I don't have the exact date, but it would expire if we did not continue or adopt this tonight. And when it expires, my understanding is that there's no impact fee until we would come back and adopt this.
So does the law allow us to just adopt and keep the same impact fee in place?
The current amount?
Current amount.
So I think, yeah, we can, the recommendation is the amount you can adopt up to, so you can adopt anything less than that.
And if we adopt a lesser fee than the $92.65, where does the difference in our impact fees, where does the difference in our system come from?
So the impact fees come from new development, and if we did not adopt this or we reduce the amount we adopted tonight, we have to make that revenue up to operate our water and sewer system. And so the additional revenues would have to come from the existing businesses and the existing residents in the form of raising rates further than we would already expect to have to raise rates.
Mayor, may I?
Yeah.
Trying to also spend less money, right? I mean, it's a math equation. You can either collect more or you could spend less.
The bulk of the cost on that side of things are our capital projects we're doing right now. So that's our surface water plant. It's our 2 wastewater plants that have to be expanded and upgraded. And that's the bulk of the cost, making up the pressure on our water and sewer rates. And those 2 wastewater plants have to be expanded. They've met the thresholds with TCEQ to move forward with those projects.
Could I reduce that to a yes or no question? We could then make up the difference by, in theory, spending less to make up the difference.
I would not recommend not doing projects required by the TCEQ.
Just mathematically.
Will we be in violation of TCEQ rules if we didn't update our current situation?
Yes, if we did not move forward with those plant expansions, we'd be in violation of our TCEQ permits that we operate those plants under.
I think I made my point. I'll just say it one more time. If somebody wants a second, great. If they don't, that's fine. My position has still been rather clear. We have a spending issue, and businesses, whether they're replatting or they're new, are bearing the brunt. It is not easy. I appreciate the staff for working hard on this, but we're behind. We have a higher rate than Alvin if we go do this according to this chart. And this particular vendor had trouble last year with Manville. They encouraged them to go to 20,000, and after a negotiation where businesses really complained about it, they finally got down to this number. So I just don't think it's appropriate time. But I'll make the motion one more time. If it dies for lack of second, I'm very happy with that. So I make the motion that we be at $8,000 obviously pending any workout on the back end.
Seeing no second, we're back to the main motion. Again, my point, we've set a fee where we have historically, for those watching online and those in the chamber, historically when we've had impact fees, water sewer impact fees, we have collected through new development and their impact fees roughly 50% of the cost of capital in the areas in which they're developing. And so we've done that historically every 3 to 5 years. I think at one time we had to update them every 3 years, and I think by law it's now 5 years. So the last time, and we are increasing a fee from $64.77 to $92.65 with a vote tonight. And even prior to that, I remember when fees were as low as less than $2,000. So over time we have, and again, as been mentioned, in our water and sewer rates currently, and the increases in those rates, they're directly to the capital improvements that we are seeing in both water and wastewater. To the member's point, we could value engineer and lower cost, and we should be doing that regardless of this. But even with this, that would actually make it just that much better. So we should be always value engineering our projects to make sure that we're delivering a product that our citizens need, want, and can afford, and at the same time have good potable water, as well as making sure that if you flush your toilet, that it actually leaves efficiently and doesn't back up. So I'll open it up for all any other questions, comments, concerns from council.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would like to add, from our last meeting, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about this. And if I recall, and Raj, you answered the question last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but over a 5-year period, we collect about $24 million in impact fees, or roughly $4 million-ish a year. So, you know, that would otherwise be on the backs of the businesses. Now, I think I want to make a clarification too, Mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that it's not necessarily just new developments per se. It's businesses coming to Pearland that are actually redefining redefining the usage of an existing location also, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
If it causes an increase in usage, there could be a delta. But we are changing, I think, and Trent might want to expound on this. Historically, we've always done a single family equivalent or a single equivalency. There's a table and a chart. So if you have a sit-down restaurant and with X number of chairs, that is equivalent to X number of units. With this one, we're also basing it on meter size. So it'll be a little bit easier in consumption size. So that'll actually be a little bit easier for people to understand what it is. So now, if you come in under this and you have an impact fee on a 2-inch meter, and you come in behind that and you're still doing a 2-inch meter, there's no impact. But if you have to increase your meter size, there could be.
Right.
Trent, you want to expound on that a little bit?
That's correct. So the way it used to be, if you change use and we went through the chart and it determined you were going to use additional water by your use, you would have to pay the delta for the new impact fee. But as the mayor said, for this, if you have a 2-inch meter and your new use still needs just a 2-inch meter, there's no additional impact fees.
This affects the enterprise fund again, so we're expecting a 13% increase next year. You know, without the impact fees or the increase in these impact fees, we could potentially see more, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I've gotten numerous calls, emails, and complaints about our current situation of our water billing in Pearland and the fact that it is going up next year and the subsequent year as well. I'm not prepared to, you know, kick the can down the road and hope that, you know, maybe next year we come up and find some additional money and figure out, oh, it's not 13% now, maybe it's 15% if we don't do this. So I'm good with it. And I think that, you know, we gave some relief to some of the smaller businesses and staff accommodated my request on actually allowing them to pay that impact fee over time. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. I much appreciate it. I know you were hesitant to do so, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think that actually comes back when they bring the fee schedule itself and the changes in the fees, which I'm glad to see that we're given that opportunity as well. It'll lessen some of the blow as they go through the permitting process and building process, and I think they have to have it all paid by the time they get to CO, and that's the ultimate hook, so appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary will call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Camcar,
No.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
No.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Owens, Member Koza.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-2.
All right, with that, we'll move to new business item number 3. It's a presentation on our 5-year IT strategic plan findings. With that, we'll turn it to a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's been 8 years since our last IT strategic plan was put together and completed. And from that roadmap, we really directed and implemented many of the recommendations from that plan to get us to where we are with our IT, our information technology infrastructure. However, technology changes fast, and 8 years is a long time. And we have all of our departments every day relying upon our IT systems to do their jobs efficiently. You heard about, we saw and heard some of our folks earlier tonight with the proclamations, body cams, our dispatchers, GIS, permitting, our asset management, financial systems, our reporting dashboards, and just about everything we do relies on our IT infrastructure. So to address that rapidly changing technology, we are bringing to you the 5-year strategic plan, which took a collaborative approach. All departments were involved and input on this, and it evaluates where we are, where we need to be, and what it'll take to get there. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Dan McGinnis. He's our CIO and leads our wonderful IT department, and he's going to kick things off and introduce our consultant that'll be presenting tonight.
Thanks, City Manager Epperson. Mayor and Council, just want to take a brief moment and thank city staff, the entire IT department, and obviously a special thanks to Paul Yates and our IT department for all of his efforts that assisted in the development of the strategic plan. We do have Roy Hernandez and Amy Barajas here from Third Wave. I will turn it over to him to go through his findings and the 5-year strategic plan at a high level. Roy, all yours.
Excuse me. Honorable Mayor, distinguished council members, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back in Pearland. We really like this town. So we're here tonight to present the findings of the IT strategic plan, which we will call the ITSP. So the ITSP is the result of a comprehensive and thorough assessment of the city's existing technologies, operational requirements, and service delivery needs. It reflects a strategy that is technologically strategic, operationally responsive, and fiscally responsible. It addresses the unique requirements of mission-critical business needs of the city and its constituents. The ITSP is a data-driven product from a collaborative effort with city management and staff. It focuses on challenges that could be mitigated with emerging technologies. The challenge of adopting, funding, and implementing an ITSP is a formidable one. However, given the 5-year timeline, there is plenty of latitude to execute the technology initiatives. The ITSP is a living document that can and should be reviewed and adjusted on a yearly basis. It provides an opportunity for new, more efficient ways of providing services. The cornerstone of the ITSP is to ensure that IT investments are sound and deliver the highest possible value to the city and this community. Moreover, this document provides a wealth of data that can be leveraged over the next 5 years to facilitate excellence in service delivery, civic participation, and community well-being. With that, I will go ahead and present the findings. This is our agenda. We'll talk about the goals and objectives, project approach, findings and recommendations, and benefits. There's an old Chinese saying that says, if you don't know where you're going, any path will do. The corollary in the IT industry is if you don't know what you need, any system will do. The problem with that, of course, is that you might buy the wrong thing, and you also might waste valuable funds. So in investing in technology, we want the desired outcomes. Just a quick here on the experience and expertise that informed the plan. As a firm, we have been doing this for 3.5 decades. We have done more than 200 IT strategic plans for cities in 27 states and throughout Canada. In fact, in California, 50% of all the cities there have retained us to do a strategic plan for them, including 7 of the 11 largest cities in California, in the US, I'm sorry. And we also have the highest implementation rate in the US. Now let's get to the strategic planning goals. Number 1, connect technology, resources, innovation, and initiatives to the city's core business values and mission. 2, define a clear set of goals, guiding principles, and strategic priorities for implementing the ITSP. 3, serve as an effective framework for delivering IT services throughout the city and community. In terms of the objectives of the plan, is a sound, successful ITSP is actionable. It has enough detail that it can actually be implemented. Technology, it leverages emerging technologies while at the same time taking into account the investments that you've already made. It is financially responsible. In other words, we have prioritized initiatives to make sure that whatever is invested reaps the highest return on investment. It is responsive to business and service delivery needs of the city. And perhaps more importantly, it supports the public well-being. The project has used a formal waterfall methodology, discovery phase, requirements, and strategy. The discovery phase basically took a look at the landscape, the operational organization of IT, and so forth. The requirements included meeting one-on-one with focus groups, interviews, and an online survey to gather the specific needs of each department. Those 2 data sets then informed the strategy itself. When we do these projects, one of the things that we focus on is leaving no stone unturned. And by this we mean by engaging everybody in the organization at every level. For example, we had 16 management interviews to get that perspective. We held a series of focus groups with IT staff to get their input on the challenges that they face. We also did an online survey, which produced 343 responses. This is the highest response rate we have received in 35 years. Amazing. And then finally, we ended up with 19 half-day business process improvement workshops with staff. I'm going to go through just a couple of the key high-level findings. In the management interviews, the 3 most identified requirements were more IT support, GIS data management, and integrated systems. In the IT focus groups, we looked at the entire organization. The longer the bar, the bigger the challenge. And on the technology side, you can see here that software and databases have the biggest amount of challenges. And this is because in the next 5 years, half of all existing systems will need to be upgraded or replaced at the city. We'll address that in a little more detail later. Organizationally, you see the green bar is a management issue. That has to do with IT resources. From the IT survey, we got a staff survey. We got some really valuable information. First and foremost, if you look at all the areas of IT services, the IT department is doing a great job. If you look all the way down, most of these areas were rated excellent to very good, 60% of them. But there are a few areas that need improvement, obviously. One is end user training, and the other one is ongoing technical support. Both of those deficiencies point to the need of more staffing. Finally, we did a series of rapid workflow workshops. These are business process improvement workshops. I'm not going to go through all this detail. We can't read it. But the important point here is that we looked at 19 mission-critical processes, and we identified all the instances where each process has bottlenecks. In this diagram, those instances are indicated with the red numbers. On the next page here, we see a narrative, an explanation of what those challenges are, how to fix them, and the benefits, including technical requirements for new systems. All right, now we're going to move on to findings and recommendations. Vision. So the vision for the ITSP is to adopt a comprehensive roadmap of proven information technologies in the most strategic, innovative, and cost-effective manner, while at the same time making Pearland a a premier place to live, work, and visit. From a mission perspective, enhance internal city operations to foster extraordinary customer service, delivery, and resilience. All right, so now we're going to get into the findings and recommendations. The project identified 40 different initiatives of varying types. We're going to discuss the top 10. Number 1, resource the IT organization to make up for past deficiencies and effectively support existing and future systems. The benefits, effectively support existing and proposed systems for the new projects, as well as providing sustainability. Sustainability is the ability to effectively support whatever gets implemented over the next 5 to 10 years. IT governance, adopt a standard IT governance process, practice, and tools for all new IT projects. IT governance is the method used to evaluate and validate that a new system should be procured. The benefits are ensure proper systems requirements, vetting and procurement, and again, more importantly, ensure that systems are successfully deployed and the city gets the return on investment. Number 3, now there's going to be a number of recommendations here where the systems are becoming obsolete or no longer supported, and there's 4 or 5 of these here. The first one is the CAD RMS. The recommendation here is to replace the Central Square system that is no longer being enhanced and will not be supported in the future by the vendor. Here, the benefits would be enhanced public safety, improved vendor and IT support. The finance system that the city has, we're recommending that it be replaced and because it's being phased out by the vendor. It will no longer be supported. The benefits here will be provide a missing budget module and other capabilities, eliminate duplicate manual data entry, spreadsheets, redundant work, and improve staff efficiency. Number 5, the human resource system. We're recommending that 6 existing systems that are being used for HR be replaced with 1 contemporary enterprise human resource system. The benefits out of the gate, $150,000 a year savings on software maintenance costs for those 6 systems. Other benefits include staff time savings, eliminating administrative errors, better reporting, data-driven decisions, et cetera. And again, more importantly, is a more effective manner of doing human capital management. Another key system, the utility billing system. We're recommending that it be replaced with replace the existing customer unfriendly system with a billing system that provides contemporary functionality and provides the lacking functionality of the existing system. The benefits are enhanced customer service, staff time savings, and enhanced reporting. Number 7, continue the fiber expansion. We're recommending that the city add a second fiber path to city facilities. The benefits here are eliminate single point of failure and provide resilience and disaster recovery. Along the same lines of disaster recovery, we're recommending that the city set up a disaster recovery site, replicate the data in the cloud, and this will also mitigate disastrous data loss in the event of a disaster. And finally, when it comes to hardware, we're recommending that to replace outdated laptops, PCs, and provide the appropriate tools for each staff, depending on the job that they do, because it varies. The benefits are provide staff with the right tools for the job, staff time savings, and enhanced productivity. And finally, the call center, we're recommending that the city replace outdated on-premise solution with a new hosted call center system. The benefits would be to eliminate customer frustration and provide enhanced customer service. So those are the top 10 of 40 projects that we identified. In case you're wondering how we determined that these were the top 10 of the 40, we actually went through a prioritization process. And this is the criteria that we used to determine which projects should be done first. And we used weighted scores. We applied them to these criteria, and that's how we determined the projects for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? Now this diagram is really busy, and we don't need to read it, but we can look at it visually. And if we look at this document, there's 2 things I would like to point out. Number 1, if you look at the rectangle and the little yellow circles in that diagram, everything that you see in yellow has to be upgraded or replaced. This is what I alluded to a little earlier when I said that about half of all the systems in the city will need to be upgraded or replaced in the next 5 years. If you look at the number to the right, the 56 out of 125, 45% of these systems will need to change in the next 5 years. That represents a considerable amount of work. Next, this slide shows the investment that we have calculated, and this represents a very detailed budget estimate for every project that we've identified. And again, I'm not going to go into all the numbers, but I would like to point out two things that are somewhat evident. In year one, the color purple indicates infrastructure. And so year one is basically the year where we build the foundation for the city's information systems for the next 5, 10, even 15 years. So that's the focus there. In year two, you see the green bars in 2 and 3. That indicates investment in software. And those are the systems that will no longer be supported by vendors. And that's what we're indicating, either upgrading or replacing them. And you can see at the bottom in the blue bar, and that indicates professional services. So those are the services required to implement those systems. When we look at year 3 and 4, you don't really see any blue in those columns because presumably by that point the city's IT department is in an operational mode with the IT resources that have been added to the department. But you do see the yellow line, the yellow bar indicating software maintenance costs. So this diagram provides a very high-level overview from a financial standpoint in terms of the rationale for investing in technology. And this investment model correlates directly back to the requirements that we heard from the leadership team, the IT department, and staff. The other big thing, you see it at the bottom, is the bottom line, $26 million over 25 years. Okay? Now, I would like to state at this point that this is a plan. This is a list of things to do. And this is the data that we think this organization will need, and you will need as you discuss and explore the options here. But this is what we believe to be the data that you need and the city needs to make intelligent decisions, informed decisions. Okay? In this diagram, we see that this is the implementation roadmap. So here we've mapped out all 40 projects over 5 years. Now this, again, I'm not going to go through every detail here, but the important thing is this. A, by having a roadmap, the IT department can plan its work. This is important not only from a financial standpoint, but from a resource allocation standpoint, to make sure that these projects can be delivered on time and successfully. Secondly, for departments, this allows every department in the city to plan when their projects will be initiated. And the reason this is important because a lot of these projects, because they are major projects, will require participation from stakeholders. So this allows all the departments to do their planning. And finally, after these 40 initiatives, will require a procurement process. This is information that should be important to your procurement department because they will be issuing RFPs for some of these projects, and some of these will be big. And that's important as well. Now, one of the tasks in the project that we did was we benchmarked the city of Pearland with other cities. I have two foils here. This first foil looks at FTEs supported by each IT staff person. In Plano, one person supports 22. In Pearland, one person supports 43. And in Benbrook, one person supports 85. So relatively speaking, the city falls somewhere in the middle in terms of staffing. What our staffing strategy proposes is to move that arrow from 43 to 24, which is the arrow that you see on the left. This is what the staffing plan would propose. When it comes to the number of applications supported by each IT person, Plano supports 2, Pearland supports 6, and Midlothian supports 16. And in our staffing strategy, we're proposing to move that arrow from the existing 6 to 3.5, which again, the focus here is sustainability and the ability to provide better support and training of the new systems. All right, now I have to say at this point that this project, we looked at many things, functionality, business process improvement. We looked at a number of different criteria. The one item that came up in every phase of the project was the lack of IT resources. In this foil here, you see feedback from the management team and the management interviews. And in the bar charts up above, you can see that their perception is that the adequateness of IT staffing is on the low end, good to poor. But if we look at the management statements, the comments made, I think IT needs more people. They're very good, but sometimes they lack staff for larger projects. There might be more work than the resources can handle. These kinds of statements were consistently made throughout the project. When we compiled the data from the end user survey, we saw similar comments. IT support is seemingly overworked. IT staff needs improvement, add staff, not enough IT personnel. And this was a common theme throughout the project. In response to this, we are proposing the following. Right now, the IT department has 21 existing staff. We're recommending that the city add 17 staff over the next 5 years. Okay? The organization that you see here reflects, again, points back to the requirements that we gathered and the solutions that we're proposing. If you look at the 3 items with the red arrows, those are the highest priority positions that we think the city should pursue. And the reason for that is very simple. We're talking about IT operations, applications and support. And these are the 2 organizations that are going to be key to not only implementing the systems, but supporting the systems once they get implemented. And this points back directly to the data that we got from the staff survey. Whoops. Sorry. This is a list of positions over the next 5 years. I'm not going to go through each one of these because, quite frankly, the description and responsibility definition for each one of these is provided in the ITSP document. But this is basically a list of what's in the previous chart. So finally here, what does the city and the community of Pearland get for investing, adopting, and funding the IT strategic plan? In total, in the 19 workshops that we did, which were very detailed, your staff identified almost 1,000 potential benefits of investing in technology. These benefits had to do with internal operational effectiveness, enhanced service delivery, et cetera. So what we did is we compiled the data and we sorted it. And if you look at the top 3 benefits, staff time savings, enhanced customer service, and improved efficiency and productivity, which really supports the first 2, we believe that this city, and the data shows, that there is a compelling business case to adopt and invest in the IT strategic plan. Whoops. Next steps, we recommend that the city start implementing the 5-year plan and that the city appropriate funding for the first year of the plan. After that, we would recommend the city establish an IT governance policy and practice and begin to resource the IT organization. Following the first year, we recommend that the IT strategic plan be reviewed and refreshed on a yearly basis. And finally, to continue the implementation of the IT Internal Service Fund. And with that, I thank you for your time and for being so gracious. I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Any follow-up?
So maybe just a couple of wrap-up comments. You know, one of the things recommended in here is the IT governance. I think that's very important for us to make sure as we move forward, we're fully vetting anything we move forward with, that if we're going to move forward with new technologies, that governance, instead of just, deciding we need something and moving forward with it, it will take a look at not just what it can provide for us, but how do we sustain that? How do we support that properly? Does it make sense from that standpoint as well? So while we want to look at technologies that make us more efficient and make us better at customer service and all of those other things, we've got to make sure that they're sustainable solutions as well. And that's a lot of what you see through here, is that while we've got a lot of good technology, we don't always, we implement it. Usually we implement it pretty well. We struggle sometimes with that application support piece of it and that sustaining of that infrastructure. So I think that's a couple of the themes that I took out of this. And of course, you see a lot of dollars there and a lot of needs there, and we've got to balance those against all of our other needs. And but this, gives us a roadmap and a place to head towards. So, would be happy to have any questions for staff or for Roy as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I just kind of see this as kind of just a stepping off point, somebody coming in fresh eyes, taking a look at our overall systems, and then ultimately, these are big numbers and how, where, and what. I do appreciate that, not all at once, it's over some period of time. Recommended over 5 years. It might end up being 4, it might end up being 7. Just depends on how, what, and where, appetite for budget and change and all of that. So I'll open it up to questions and comments from council members. Thank you, Roy, for being here. Thank you for the presentation and the work to this point. Like I said, it's a snapshot in time of what we may be needing, but now we've got to figure out how we digest it. So with that. Okay. There you go.
Thank you. On slide number 4, you did mention that in 7 of the 11 largest cities in the U.S., are there any other cities in Texas?
Yes, Austin.
Oh, great. Thank you. And I had one other question, but I think I figured it out. It was ERP is, I think I found an enterprise resource.
And I apologize for that. When you're a technologist, these acronyms just kind of roll off our lips.
Right. I had never seen that. I'm sorry.
And, we forget that not everybody's a technologist. So ERPs, they come in several flavors. Primarily, there's a group of finance applications, everything related to finance, everything related to HR. Utility billing is considered an ERP, part of an ERP. These are big systems. Asset management is considered part of an ESP. So, we apologize.
Oh, that's fine. In my head, I kept saying ERP, and it kind of made me laugh. I wanted to know kind of what that.
It's a good question, and I think in our the system we use is that's our ERP is New World, so you probably have heard that word more frequently than ERP.
I wanted to hear you say what it was exactly. I looked it up, but.
I guess in our defense, and it isn't a defense, an ERP because today, 20 years ago, it was either finance or an HR system, period. Today, ERPs have gobbled all these other smaller companies up. So an ERP today can have 10, 20, 30 modules. So instead of going through the entire list, we as technologists, we just say ERP finance, ERP HR, but it's many modules. It's just too long a list to say.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Sorry. No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Berry?
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Appreciate you coming out. I'm happy to see the customer service piece is up there at number 2. I want to ask you something. So as we're let's assume we're moving forward with this 5-year plan or whatnot. How often do we need to refresh our hardware? And I mean, obviously software is updated on a regular ongoing basis, right? Through various patches or whatever, but how often would you recommend we update our hardware?
It depends on the hardware. Hardware can be separated into servers, which most people never see. They store data, and divide like laptops and desktops. Most cities, and this one included, typically have a replacement schedule, and it depends on the size of the organization. But typically, laptops might be replaced every 3 years, for example. Desktops might be every 4. It really depends on the usage.
What about servers and?
Servers can be 5 years, 7 years. It depends. Again.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I've been a firm opponent of putting IT infrastructure on the bond schedule. I think a lot of this stuff makes sense. Certainly financially doesn't make sense right now. But, I think at some point we need to figure out how to build this into our budget on a regular basis. But, there is certainly give and take somewhere. I certainly don't want to get into a situation where we're forced to do a wholesale rebuild of our infrastructure, whether it's various systems or not, because then we're in a forced to do situation as we were with the school district. anyway, it's something to think about. Thanks a bunch.
Actually, you read my mind because I was going to add to that statement that by having a planned replacement schedule, the trick is never to do that. You know, if you have 100 PCs, you replace, 20 of them every 3 years. So you never get to the point, or even servers, you never get to the point. And I'm confident that that is not the case here. I don't see that happening.
Last point. The reason I asked about the life cycle is because our bonds are usually 20 to 25-year bonds. So I certainly don't want to pay for a 3-year product or a 7-year product on a 25-year bond. It was kind of my underlying.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I've also seen cities and others can do shorter term, 5-year, those types of things, even typical banking relationships, but it would still be, municipal rated. So you can do that. And I'm not recommending we go a debt route at all. I'm just saying there are shorter time frames if you need to. So, question, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Well, there's two Hernandezes. I guess that was confusing.
Yeah.
Sorry. To what degree are you going to, I guess, stay with this plan moving forward? I mean, the pace of technology moves faster every year. So next year, I'm assuming there will be some things in here, maybe some recommendations that will change, and the year after that will probably change. So to what degree are you involved in the year-by-year refresh of this?
The majority of our clients, they retain us to come in every once a year, basically, and we do what we call a refresh, because you're right, things change, technology changes, organizations change, the economy changes, pandemics hit, and so this is a plan. It's a living document, as we mentioned, and it is very prudent that every organization revisit, and literally any plan, but certainly this plan, primarily because technology, you hear animals, you hear about dog years, 1 year, 7 years is 1 year to a dog as a human. Technology advances, that cycle is 3 years. So every 3 years, technology is going to turn over, right?
Right.
So if you have a 5-year plan, by year 5, if you don't revisit it, you're out of whack. And so we would submit to our common practices to review and refresh a 5-year plan every year.
Yeah, because I think of what happened. You mentioned the pandemic. What happened during the pandemic? There used to be a very limited number of industry-specific CRMs that existed, for instance. And when the pandemic hit, now you went from having 3 options to having 50 options.
Correct.
And now you've got 200 options because everyone figured out there's a space that they can get into.
Exactly right.
And so, I mean, particularly with our utility billing and stuff like that, I've kind of heard in the past, well, there's a couple off-the-shelf options we can go with, but they're not a perfect fit for what we need. And so we kind of have to go and find one that is the best fit for what we need. We've even talked about trying to hire somebody to develop something, and we've had all these discussions. So I'm just assuming this stuff changes so regularly. So I wanted to get that. My second question to you, and this isn't to scare anybody, I'm just asking, okay? Do you foresee any of these recommendations causing any redundancies within the organization?
No, actually the opposite. The reason we do such a rigorous job of touching base with everybody is because at the end of the day, we want to eliminate redundant systems. Redundant systems are costly. The HR is the perfect example. 6 different systems.
Well, and let me clarify. I don't just mean redundant systems.
Okay.
I'm using the European redundancy, where we have now a staff member whose job may not be as relevant as it once was because we have a piece of technology that can handle that task, I suppose.
So you're talking about like human resource?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this wasn't an HR study. Having said that, however, when we look at business process analysis, as we did for all your mission critical business processes across the entire city, we identified, if you look at a map, you'll see the steps, the activities, and then you see who does those activities. And so by doing that, it gives us an insight as to the type of resources. I'm not talking about IT resource, I'm talking about staff.
Right.
It gives us an insight as to what staff are doing what things. One of the things that we often discover And the narrative is that we got the right person doing the wrong job, or we got the right classification, person with this classification doing the wrong job. That kind of stuff, a study like this uncovers. But this was not, wasn't an HR per se study.
Because I do kind of see where you talk about improved efficiencies and productivity, and that's of interest to me. Thinking about, I hear a lot that our different departments, actually pretty much all the departments, are stressed, that they're understaffed, and you got people just being buried. Lori's back there, and I know that she's just constantly. I talk to her more than y'all, so I know that but it seems to be a recurring theme. So knowing more specifically how this will allow our employees that we do have to maybe do their jobs more effectively, and if down the road from a budgeting perspective that will allow us maybe to go from we needed to hire 12 people in this department, but now because we've got better support systems in place and IT to support the systems, that we can hire 8. I'd like to maybe, and I know that's probably not, this is an HR study, but I'd like to at least maybe get that to marry with this study, because it does seem to be one of the top, at least the top 3 things on your benefits.
The reason that enhanced efficiency and productivity are number 3 is because when we did the business process, we call them business process improvement workshops, we actually addressed the point that you're raising. That's what we ask: who is doing this work, right? Because what we find when we do business process analysis, that there is a certain amount of redundancy of the same thing being done by multiple people. Mm-hmm. And in a project like this, the business process analysis takes a snapshot of what is. There's another technique that we typically don't use in IT strategic planning, and it's called future state business process mapping. And in that technique, that's where we really get into the question that you're answering, and that is, how do we take this business process? And by the way, these can be cross-functional. This is how the city attorney affects public works and contracting, or how procurement affects the procurement of a good or services in any department. And when we do business process future state mapping, is when we say, okay, here are all the instances where there's duplication of work, duplication of data entry, i.e. the same data being entered in 3 different departments. If we can agree, for example, that instead of having 3 departments enter the same data, maybe we just have the first department enter it once and make that data available to the two others. Now we have removed work from the other 2 departments. And I think that's what you're getting. Is that what you're getting at?
That is part of it, yeah.
It's finding opportunities where we take existing staff and we make them more efficient. We eliminate what we call tedious, we call it low-value work. We actually have a term for it. We call it low-value work. Not that it's not important, it's just being done by somebody else already.
Right, okay.
And so by getting rid of that, that's how you get business process improvement and enhanced efficiencies. So
Thank you for that. I know I'm getting really deep.
Anyways, I apologize, but I think you bring up a really, really important point. In our mind, the implementation of technology should not automate what you currently do. It should enhance the way that you do and have the same amount of people do more work.
Yeah.
It's not just the process of getting a new machine. That should not be the objective. If that's the case, you're not getting the full return on investment.
Fair point. Thank you, Mayor.
Good deal. Hey, Roy, I'm going to ask a favor. Can you take that mic that's in front of you and just lift it up a little bit?
Sure.
There you go. That'll be a little bit better to make sure I can hear you. Questions, comments? Mr. Cam Carr?
Well, first of all, thank you for the staff for participating in all the studies. This is important. And then thank you for Roy and Amy from coming all the way from LA. We don't have In-N-Out here as readily as you do, but I hope you found something good to eat while you're over here. So I just want to ask a couple questions. Just trying to understand, because this is a 300 slide thing. It's very robust. All of these different implementation items, programming, transition, is this off-the-shelf kind of items, or is this going to be bespoke software that you guys are envisioning?
We do not. It is rare today that we recommend that any software be developed by a city, fact, it's the opposite. We recommend that all our clients buy commercial off-the-shelf software. Even if you need to customize it, even then we recommend that it be minimal. And the point that was brought up about IT governance is a way to ensure that you procure software that provides 80 to 90% of the functionality you need. In fact, in the IT industry, that's actually called the 80% rule, because today you do not want to be doing software development. It's time consuming, it's costly, and if the person leaves the city, you're in a tough situation.
And then I will need the third PowerPoint, third item in the agenda item, just not right now. You're saying that we don't, the recommendations here are more off the shelf than they are custom-made solutions?
Correct. Okay. And this is why governance is so important, because we would say to that the trick there to make sure that you make the 80% rule is that you do proper vetting, identifying your requirements, developing specifications, and going through a formal assessment. Here's the danger. The point about the new CRM systems, the proliferation of CRM systems, that's dangerous, because somebody here at the city may go to a conference and fall in love with a system, and if they're a department head, you're in trouble.
Okay.
Sorry, because
that's a great point.
we know what happens when we fall in love, right? Love is blind, and you come back and you say,
I thought it was expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And you come back and you say, I went to a conference and I saw this system and I love it. Let's buy it.
Right.
And that can be a very expensive proposition.
Got it.
You want to formally vet everything before you buy anything.
Yes, sir. So in this item, this is the third item under the, when you click on the agenda, it'll be the third one. When you had a lot of survey information, which was really helpful, let me ask you a question. From your assessment, you've been doing this for many years, many decades. How would you evaluate our system in your own words as it stands today?
What system?
The IT systems that we have.
And generally speaking, the IT systems as a whole?
High level, 100,000 foot analysis, just in your own words.
Well, I mean, I'll say maybe two or three things. Number one, the IT department has done a great job of providing what departments need. You have a lot of stuff, to put it in layman's terms. Number two, you built a great foundation and tool set, but the resources to sustain it weren't up to par. Okay. I think, just to kind of finish off the point, if I may, I think this. Well, let me say this. This is a highly professional city. We've worked in hundreds. I've worked in 300 cities. Now, we don't just do this, we do other stuff. And this city's very, very professional. So generally speaking, I think as a city, you're a highly functioning organization. I think IT has done a fantastic job of providing the tools that departments need. I think that technology has changed and the city has changed. I would say it's probably grown, say since 10 years ago. And I think it's time to make that alignment between organizational requirements, technology, and the sustainability of the technology. But we would rate the city high.
There's item 3.1 under this. It's page 11 on the implementation roadmap, but it's 3.1 on mine.
Let me see, go to it.
I apologize. This is
this one?
I just want to understand, when we're budgeting, because there was a slide in there that had an amount on it. Like, when we start putting dollars to build out or software or technology or whatever.
Was that the 5-year?
That too, and then there's yes, sir. Okay. And so this kind of prefaces over the top, but I guess what are we buying in theory? Because you've got a very robust disclaimer here about, items vary. It does not represent a price quote.
Right.
How do we contextualize what is software, what is add-ons or implementation or installation? I mean, how do we get our arms around this? The 7 people here plus the mayor.
Okay.
We have to deal with the nuts and bolts of the operation, but also how to finance it. And so I'm just kind of trying to get my arms around, like,
sure,
how do you put a value on it? Because it's just a lot, and I don't.
It is absolutely a lot, and this the reason The reason we do such a rigorous job of researching everything before we recommend anything is because we want to make sure that every recommendation we made is sound. But if you look at the color coding on this chart, the blue is money invested in professional services. The purple is infrastructure. So we try to give you some indication of where the monies that we're proposing would be allocated to, right? The disclaimer that you see that says it does not include training, integration, data migration.
Can I pull that up just a little bit so we can see that disclaimer? Please.
Yeah, the reason we have that disclaimer is because when we do an IT strategic plan, as rigorous and detailed as it is, and it is very detailed, admittedly, the reason we cannot say that is because you can't determine that until you do a detailed functional technical spec. We just simply
does that mean in
don't
English?
have that data.
What does that mean in English for the layperson?
For example, well, I don't know. Okay, let's take your HR system. That's a good example. So in HR, we know what an HR, we can tell you, I'll say plus or minus $10,000, what an HR system is going to cost. For a city like this, $700K. Okay? What we cannot tell you is how much data you have in those 6 existing systems. We didn't look at that. Now, it might be a little, it might be a lot. Some of it might be 2 years old and it's very well documented. Some of it might be 25 years old and not documented. We don't know that. Thus, we cannot possibly give you an estimate on what it's going to take the data from these 6 systems and move them into a new one. That's what we're talking about.
And then can we go on to 3.2 now? I've got this 26.2 number. It's very clear. By the way, this report that you produced is the subject for the PowerPoint. That data.
Okay.
It was at the foundation for that?
Yeah, this report is the foundation for this PowerPoint.
Okay. So under item 3.21, page 14. There we go, right under here. Oh, no, it just scrolled past it. There you go. So we had a 26.2 number. I've got a report here that says 19.9. It's a delta of about $6.3 million, 32%.
Right.
Somebody help fill the gap where I'm finding $6.2 more million that we need.
That's the cost for IT resources, for staff.
People.
Personnel.
Personnel costs.
Personnel is not included in the 5-year cost for hardware and software.
And that's Pearland people, that's not outside consultant or anything.
Correct.
No,
Based on the-
no. And we separate that on purpose because, resourcing of IT it's a parallel conversation. It's not related to technology. What we've done here, since you brought it up, is we try to segregate cost data. We try to parse it out in such a way that if you want to look at hardware, you can look at hardware. If you want to look at resources, you can look at resources. We try not to, show them, lump them all together because that would be really difficult.
And as this process and implementation goes on, that number could expand or contract, correct?
It could. Someone mentioned it. I think it was the mayor. This 5-year plan could become a 6-year plan. When you look at the financial realities and challenges of any city, right? You're trying to meet the demands of multiple departments, and sometimes you got to spread that money out. And we've had cities where the 5-year plan becomes a 6-year plan.
I appreciate the time. The only comment I would have further on staff, I think we have a good plan here. I think what we did with Mr. Upton when he was here and having every 90-day check or every half-year check of how much are we spending, did the number go up or down? I think what gets measured gets improved. And I think if we decide to go down that route, I do think we need to have a hard benchmark of here was the number we thought, here's where we're at. As Mr. Roy has said, technology is moving very quickly. In 3 years, this could be very obsolete. And so I'd like to have us have a very quarterly look at where we are. I agree with Member Berry. This is a very important item, and I look forward to us working on this.
Excellent. Can I say something regarding that real quick? We actually have a recommendation in the report that makes that point. And it's under the project management recommendation. And what you described in IT is called project portfolio project management. Project portfolio management is the term. And it does exactly what you just said. And we recommended that in the report, that method and the tools to do that be adopted. And that way you can monitor on a monthly, quarterly, 6 months, yearly basis exactly where all the projects are at. And you can get that insight into the budgetary issues of
I'm overjoyed that you guys think it's a good idea, because I think it's worked well on the water plant.
Yep.
And it's been going well, so I think we should do more of that. So I'm glad that some other professional thinks that's a good idea.
Oh, it's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll go back to slide 22, where it outlines that $26 million number, and can staff give us an idea of what the current IT budget is?
Read my mind. Question I was going to ask.
Dan, you got that?
Yeah, give me a second. I got to pull it up.
I'm just trying to get a feel for, are we talking an extra 10, 20%, or I think we're going to be doubling IT spending is what this projects. While you're pulling that up, I guess part of the next steps, this will roll into an internal service fund discussion on how we budget and fund this going forward.
Yes, sir. So I think as part of, obviously, early budget input session, we'll be looking at some of the recommendations out of this. We'll be looking at some of the longer term things, the very costly things like the replacement of the RMS CAD system for PD, ERP system eventually. We'll be looking at those on the longer term, but with establishing the internal service fund for IT, what do we need to start putting aside to pay for those things in the long run and make this sustainable? We're going to come back, I believe it's in June, and we're going to talk about all the internal service funds and IT being one of those. And we're looking in that we would have, as was mentioned earlier, you've got your software maintenance cost. We typically know what those are. And then we have our equipment replacement costs. So you've got your laptops and your phones and all the kind of those type of items. And then you've got your more expensive things like servers and room kits and those type of things that we would look at kind of differently. And then when we look, one of the concepts we're looking at is when you look at major ERP and CAD, RMS, those types of big software replacement replacement of those systems that are extremely expensive, that we would try to build that fund up to a point that makes sense, that when we have to replace one of those, we've got the dollars in there. We would deplete that down, and then we'd start to build that back up to a point and then deplete it. And it would also go for other much less expensive system replacements, throughout the years, but it'd be the big ones we're preparing that part of the fund for. So we're looking at it, the fund in those different pieces.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and using this slide here to help navigate that discussion will help.
Yes, sir.
I believe it's about 7 million, but I have to run a report in order to tell you exactly.
Do we have the software to do that?
We do. There's probably more time than you want. I think there's
some of it's in the enterprise fund as well as the general fund, so that you got to pull all that together.
I'd have to run that. But I think more importantly, the investment you see here is replacing software, not necessarily what we pay in annual maintenance. So there's a difference there, right? Like City Manager Epperson said, replacing CAD, that's roughly a $4.5 million investment that wouldn't be captured in a regular budget.
Right. But then when I look at software maintenance, that's running up to $2.2 million at the end of the 5th year, as well as personnel. We're looking maybe not doubling your ongoing budget, but pretty close.
True.
Thank you.
Well, just by adding 17 people you're going from 24 to adding 17, so a lot of it is in personnel. Mr. Berry, you had a follow-up?
Yes, sir. Member Carbone asked my question, but I want to make a clarification about his last comment. This is a suggestion on replacement expenditures of our existing ongoing process, right?
Correct.
It's not in addition to.
I mean, there's a personnel line item that once we hire him, probably not.
Well, I mean, outside of the personnel line item, they took that out in the slide in the back that member Camcar mentioned. So anyway, but you asked my question. It was regarding the internal service funds. Thanks.
Ms. Cade, you had a follow-up?
I did. I had a question, I think, guess maybe for Trent or Daniel. If the E-Trackit and the maintenance software that we were replacing, is that part of this? Is that already done? Or?
So we've already moved forward with replacing E-Trackit, so I don't believe those costs are in here.
No, they are not. They were carved out specifically.
We already budgeted for those, and so that's not considered here. And just for a little bit of clarification, while this replaces things like our ERP down the road, as well as the CAD RMS system, there's also systems in here that I wouldn't say necessarily replace something we have, but are part of the recommendation after looking at our business processes that they recommend for improving the efficiencies or the way we do things. So not necessarily not everything's like a one-for-one replacement of things we have today.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. Are we at a point where should IT and especially these types of things, not that they should be necessarily in our full-blown CIP, but should there be a discussion of IT within our CIP budget where we're, especially if we're looking at embarking on this type of a plan, to member Camcar's point, have this discussion periodically like we do our CIP? Are we at that point where we're need to add that as a discussion topic, especially 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, however long it takes to implement something like this?
That's a good question, and I'd probably want some more time to kind of think on that. I do know the dollar values, would warrant being in a plan like that. Right. Since we fund most of that with long-term funding through different debt mechanisms, we may not want to add it exactly to the CIP, but having a similar, taking this and turning this into a 5-year. I mean, this is a 5-year implementation plan, but then being able to, what we're able to budget for on an annual basis, then being able to report back like we would on any of our supplemental requests that get approved, where we stand on those and the progress we're making on those, and when the implementation is concluded. We can definitely work that into the way we. It's worked into and included in our supplemental reporting we do, but we could pull that piece out as well and look at IT on a periodic basis specifically.
Go to slide 30 real quick, Josh, if you would, because I want to make sure I understand. And there we go. So explain this slide just a second, because the benefits, staff time savings, and then we have the rapid workflow benefits quantity 164. Explain what that somebody explain the 164, and then enhanced customer service 134. Explain that to me a little bit.
Sure. So we had 19 business process improvement workshops. These were half-day workshops with the subject matter experts in each one of those processes. Okay? We mapped out the way that process is currently done today. The steps, activities, participants, the software used, the documents and data produced. Then we went back and we asked staff to tell us, identify every challenge in that process, and we made a list. Then and that would be bottlenecks, inefficiencies, redundancies, disconnects, lack of access to information, redundant data entry. There's a whole list of items that were identified. Then we asked them to give us the impacts. Impacts, either quantitative impacts, money, dollars, staff, or time, or qualitative impacts, or customer service, staff stress, et cetera. So we identified the impacts. Then we asked them to, from their perspective, what they thought the solutions might be. And solutions fell in 3 categories: change the technology, change the policy, or change the process, or some combination of all 3. And at the end, we said, if we were to do these things, if we provided the solutions that you and we have identified, what would the benefits be? And when we had talked about benefits, we said benefits to the person doing the work, to the process, to your department, to the city, or to the public. So benefits come in different magnitudes. And it's those benefit statements that we then compiled for the 19 workshops. And when we compiled them, there was close to 1,000 potential benefits. Now, clearly, not all benefits have the same magnitude of potential enhancement, let's say. And so we add them up and we sort them, and this is what we get. This is the data that was gathered in those workshops, sorted by the number of times that a particular benefit was identified. Across the city, this is citywide. This is not for a particular department. And that's the data. So 164 represents that staff time savings in these 19 workshops was mentioned 164 times as a potential benefit if we were to implement the solutions that were identified in the workshop.
So maybe to further illustrate that, if we could jump to slide 12. So this is where the process was mapped.
Correct.
And then if you go to the next slide, this is where you identify problems in that process, the impacts, solutions, and on the right-hand side there in the green, the benefits if we address those problems with these solutions. So that's where that count came from. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, like, I'd like an example, like customer service in enhancements to, improve customer service. Like, what would that look like after implementing this? I know part of this is utility billing. We have a lot of processes around utility billing, 40,000 accounts that get billed every month and payments. So I'm quite sure some of that customer service is in that, but we also have, permitting and other areas where there's customers. There are either residents, contractors, somebody that's coming in and doing work in the city. So what does that, improved customer service, what would that look like?
Well, it's the examples that you just gave, and many more, actually. There, in a city, there are departments like finance and HR. Well, even finance has for example, accounts payable. Right. They're processing payments to vendors, their customers. So maybe having a new finance system allows the vendors to get paid in net 30 versus net 60. And I'm not saying that's the case.
Right.
But almost there are only a few departments in any city that do not have, in some ways, a relationship with your community. Right. Maybe Parks and Recs, Public Works. I mean, you mentioned some of them already. So any time that a city has an interaction with the public, whether it's visitors, the community, or businesses, we see those as customers. And so anytime you can make what you provide to them more efficient, a better and enhanced customer experience, a faster service, a better service, that is a customer benefit. And there are very few departments that don't have benefits to the public. If you were a corporation, we'd probably measure, and we do, we measure it differently, because corporations are in the business of, marketplace penetration, increasing revenues, increasing profits, and so forth. In government, you're not in that business. Well, if you have an enterprise-funded department, you are utilities. But generally speaking, there are a few departments in any city that do not interface and engage the public. Right. And if there's anything that we can do through the application of technology, for example, making information and services available over the internet, that's a benefit. Enhanced convenience, speed, access to data, all those things benefit the community. One of the applications we identified, it was an application to support, I forget what we call economic development. People coming here to do conferences or baseball tournaments or 10K runs, whatever. An application like that allows the city to organize and coordinate those activities. To the public, it can also be a source of information for registering for an event or finding a hotel, right? So those are the kinds of things that we consider, enhanced customer service.
Okay, it's good information because that's just it's in various forms. It's not just in one area. It's across the enterprise. And obviously, we're here to represent 130,000 people that call Pearland home, and so we want to make sure that when they're interfacing with the city specifically, we want to make their experience as good as we possibly can with efficient and good customer service and good customer feedback. And so, last thing for me, Trent, obviously we have kind of a recommended, what's next, and we saw the what's next slides with some of the software that needs to be replaced sooner rather than later. Is this going to be a staff's recommendation as to workflow, or do you guys want to take this and are you enhancing it? I don't know if you have the right feedback for tonight to move forward, but
I think the questions were great to better understand what the plan is and the basis of the plan, and so we'll take these recommendations. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the IT governance thing, I think that's key. That's imperative that we put that in place. That is going to help us as we move forward, make sure that any new applications we move forward with are fully vetted before we pull the trigger on those, that we can implement them, that we can sustain those. So I think IT governance is important. Obviously, resourcing our IT group, we'll have to, we've got needs everywhere, so we've got to weigh those needs against all the other needs, and move forward as best we can. We know we're looking at a tight year coming up, but we'll have those as part of the budget process and part of that discussion, and we still have to go through all of that process to really take a look at all of our needs and start prioritizing those and presenting those to council in a means where they are prioritized and the council can understand those and weigh in on the priorities as well. So I think those two things are important. Continuing to move forward with the IT internal service fund, and then making sure we have a means to review and refresh and report back on this annually as well. So
I know we've got an early input budget session here in 2 weeks, and I don't know if this is ready for all of that or if it'll be a part of it, but I know, we kind of formally kick things off. I know we've done it with our strategic priority session and others, but specifically starting to drill into the budget a little bit more that session. So last call, follow up, anything?
Mayor, I just want to take this opportunity to address Mr. Roy here and give you some feedback. In my 5 years, we've seen a lot of these plans come before us, and some of them seem kind of cookie cutter. Some of them, seem super detailed. You have been the most comfortable in your responses. You've been so clear in how you've answered every question. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because this is a very daunting subject, and it's something that we've started to really focus in on as an organization and start, figuring out what those true costs are and where we can improve. And I think this is a really great starting point. And I'm just really happy that you're the guy that got this job, because you've been really great, very clear. You're not afraid to give us frank answers, feedback. So I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Well,
and very soothing, she said.
Yeah. Very soothing? I've been told many things, but not that. But anyways, no, I just in response to that, you're very, very welcome. It was a privilege to do this job here. Like I said, we've worked in many, many places, and doing this project was.
She said we won't hold it against you that you're from California.
Oh, good, thank you.
That was before.
We were afraid someone was going to mention that. Anyways, no, but this project was a joy. I think, Daniel and Paul, a lot. I mean, it was a real team effort. All the staff that participated, the fantastic response that we got on the survey that gave us such an in-depth insight into the city and how you do things. This project was really, I might even write a white paper on this project, to be honest, because it was a literal joy to do it, and we were very happy that we were given the opportunity to do this for you. So thank you.
Well, there we go. Roy, thank you again. Thank you to the firm for helping us out. We got more to come, obviously, as we unroll this and move it to the street and actually implement. That's one thing I think that's important, is that we have a plan, we have a roadmap. We do have to implement at some point how, what, and where. As you said, Trent, we've got to evaluate all the needs and our budget and where does it all fit and how do we make it, how do we make it happen. So I appreciate the feedback on our staff and our organization. You're an outside looking in, and you're taking a look at our organization. So that's good feedback to hear throughout our organization, the professionalism. I would hope everyone would say, how professional our staff is. And so I appreciate that feedback, appreciate our staff for that type of feedback. I think that's excellent. So with that, we appreciate, we're going to close this item, but Roy, thank you again for coming our way and helping us out with all this. And we look forward to more. All right.
Very welcome. Thank you.
So with that, we're going to move to matters removed from the consent agenda. So if we would, I've got back to item B as in boy. Mr. Hernandez, would you present that, please?
Roy's going to go up there and say, what do I present? Thank you. Consideration possible action resolution number R2012-168-3. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item amends the membership criteria of the Convention and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board. So there is a non-voting member that the previous language in there was ambiguous, and it required someone from, the way it was stated, was from Pearland or Alvin ISD and a former CVB board member. So the confusion or ambiguity was that they had to be both from one of the ISDs and a former CVB board member. We couldn't find any of those. No. So the modification and the original intention was that that it's actually, and what we changed it to is that it is an employee of PISD, AISD, or a former CVB board member. So you just have to hit one of those criteria to be appointed as the non-voting member. So that's the change, Mayor.
Yeah, clarification. Mr. Kamkar?
Just two quick items. So who made this initial recommendation? Like what spurred this? Obviously, this has been in place for a while. The CVB's been in place for a while. Was there a particular issue or item that spurred this?
It was actually came from the board when they were trying to find somebody to replace this non-voting member, and it didn't come up until the replacement cycled through.
Okay, and then under item A, under section 2, we scratched out who shall reside in the city. Are you trying to apply that to the Pearland ISD is in the city of Pearland? AISD is not. Can I just get some more color on that?
Which item is that under section 2?
The write-up, it's under section 2, item A, Romanette A, sorry. If you pull open the agenda packet, it's page 85 of 653.
I see the red line going through it, but I don't. That's an intended change.
That's not a change on tonight's recommendation. The only change tonight would be to section 2H.
I'm just saying the red line that was in the agenda had item A with the scratch out there. So that was kind of what was confusing.
That was actually from 2012. They're showing prior amendments. That was from 2012.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
You good? Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Hernandez.
Aye.
Member Cade. Aye. Member Berry.
Aye.
Member Owens. Member Koza.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone.
Aye.
Member Kamkar.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, Ms. Cade, would you present item D?
Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2023-85. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code requires cities to develop guidelines and criteria for tax abatements. And when you adopt those, they're effective for 2 years. So it is time for us to update those. There are no changes proposed for the readoption of those.
The item under it was just under the summary, there's 4 active tax abatements. Just out of curiosity, what are those 4 active ones?
Mr. Brian Malone with the PEDC to enlighten us.
Good evening, council. Active tax abatements that the city currently has are with Findris Hauser, Lonza, DI Properties / Tool Flow, and then Multi-Alloy, which is also part of Texas Pipe.
Thank you.
When you
Any
say
other questions, comments? Got it? Any
Hey,
other?
Mayor, when you said, he said update every 2 years, but they're not changing, they're just, you have to.
There's no changes. We just have to
Reaffirm them?
reaffirm those guidelines and criteria.
That's correct. And if the city council considers entering into any tax abatement this year or next year, we could not do so until this action took place.
Since it was pulled, the sentence staff is proposing. Just had to point that out. I'm sorry, Darren.
And I really think it's really creative of staff to figure out ways to get council involvement. And so I appreciate you catching that.
That's I guess
So we
that's
were
how
being
Trent know
creative,
that
and
I
so
read
I
it
appreciate
because I
you.
called him about it.
Always one. All right. Any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Member Cade? Aye. Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we move to Mr. Berry, item H.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action resolution number R2023-82. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item and the next item are related, so I'm going to cover both of them if that's okay. This particular item amends the design contract for our Bailey Water Plant improvements. And what it includes is all the requirements for the design, inspection, and certification for the Texas Department of Insurance process so that we can get windstorm insurance on the facility, on the structures there. It also adds some post-construction startup and commissioning for the new equipment that we have there that will be new to us. We don't have that equipment elsewhere. And so these adds were basically left off the original scope, so they're being added back so that we can complete these items. And then taking the next item, item H, that's actually the additional cost to meet TDI that were not part of the original bids and specs that we've had to add into the project. And that next item, item I, also adds the cost of tying in the Canterbury transmission line, which was done to further address some water quality issues we had. With this project, we had the opportunity to tie that line in and create some more circulation within the system. And then there's a security improvement on the existing chemical storage building as well.
Good explanation. H, who pulled that?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Trent, we talked earlier a little bit about this. I guess I have a little bit of heartburn with somebody coming back to us after the fact and saying, oh, you guys didn't put a windstorm requirement in there, knowing we're in a coastal county, even though we didn't necessarily specify that we're in a coastal county. So what can we do to avoid this in the future? Because can we put a stipulation in our contract that say that these engineers or whomever bidding the project must understand and know all qualifications for, projects associated with windstorm cover and whatnot? So we need to do something, because I think this is pretty unprofessional, to be honest with you. If you're going to build on a project in a coastal county, you need to understand what those project requirements are going to be. So
Yes, sir. So noted. I had a lot of discussions with our project group over this because it wasn't included in the original scope. That we have some culpability here as well, is that we review and approve those scopes as part of what they propose on. And so, that piece was left out of this, and there are additional costs associated with that. So adding it back in, we're comfortable moving this forward, but noted, and we will make sure in the future that those services are specifically called out, and we do have the the value of those services included in future contracts.
Well, you know, I pulled I also for this very reason, because it's an increase in material costs associated with, you know, again, TDI windstorm requirements that you should know if you're going to work in this area that this is a requirement.
Sure.
It shouldn't have to be said.
So again, you know, our contractors bid the plans and specifications that we bid out. And if that's not included in there, you know, we can't force them to do that without paying for those, or, you know, modifying the plans and specs. And so again, missed in the design, didn't get in the bids and specs. So on us, as well as our design engineers, to make sure that we're doing those things properly.
So, Member Berry,
$120,000 of additional money that we have to spend. What if I vote no? What if we decide no, we're not going to grant it? Where are we on that?
I'm going to take a guess, and we won't have buildings that we can get windstorm insurance on.
I know it's relatively egregious, but I'm just saying that it's probably not a reasonable ask, but it's very frustrating.
Yes, sir.
I understand.
can we just, Mayor, do I have the, just explain to me this, because I remember Barry is our insurance guy, and I could hear him getting revved up before we even started this thing. So explain to me how did we not catch this in our QA/QC process? Because buildings have windstorm insurance. Like we're not making that up, right, Jeff? I mean, that's fairly par for the course, is it not?
No, but I think we're doing a retro, right? Are we doing a retro?
There's new buildings, and then one of the items is some retro stuff. I'm not 100% familiar with all the scope, but I do know it's new buildings.
Well, in the retro stuff, we're going to have a stated value on our list of coverages, right? Currently, so the current property is probably fine. There is going to be an inspection that requires, if you're going to do any kind of retro or remodel or whatever of more than 10% of any exterior features like walls, doors, windows, garage doors and whatnot. I saw they had a roll-up door or something like that in there too. So those kinds of things are going to require kick off another TDI inspection as well. But I just don't necessarily think we have to stipulate that for someone to come and do work in our county. I don't necessarily blame the city for it necessarily, but it should be.
What's the go forward on this? How do we close this loop and not make this mistake again? I mean, I rarely hear Member Barry say the word unprofessional. It's probably the first time I've ever heard him say that. So for him to say that on this is a buzzword to me. So how do we not make this mistake again?
So maybe we hand it over to Jameson and let us know how he's planning on addressing this and, making sure in future architectural designs and buildings that we've got all those things covered in our scope of work.
Yeah, so we're going to look at just putting the TDI inspection under the contractor's contract in the future and not do a third party through the city or through the consultant firm. I think that's one way we can clear it up and keep the responsibility between the contractor and the TDI inspector, so we don't have to get involved in that. We just get our building and get our WP8 and then move on that way.
Right.
That was the initial conversations we had with Mr. Trent.
So thank you, Jameson, for reminding me of that. Yes, so we've done it both ways. We've done it the way Jameson just described. We think that's the best way moving forward. In this one, it wasn't done that way. There was some confusion over, meeting the wind code and our codes here locally versus actually having all the things in there with inspections and approval by TDI inspector to make sure that the building was built and we could get it insured in this particular instance. So we have a path forward.
The only reason I ask that is we're going to be doing more projects, more rehabs. There's $500 million with a B projects coming down the pike, and it's just.
Sure. So, I'd just say we've built a lot of buildings, and this is the first one where we've had this kind of
I agree with you. It's just
thing we've tripped over. So, we Jameson and I have had those discussions, and we'll make sure we have got that covered in the future.
All right. Sounds good.
And the contractor is it EH?
EHT is the design engineering firm.
Is EHT here?
They are.
Thanks for coming, Michael. Do y'all do a lot of business in coastal counties?
Let's go to the mic.
Let's go to Mike.
Back,
Sorry.
if you would, yeah. What? Oh. Right.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead and give your name and address for the record there.
Yes, sir. Michael Ray with Protect Hibbs and Todd out of Abilene, Texas.
And
To answer the question was, do we do a lot of work in coastal counties? We have done work in Missouri City, right next door, and we have done a handful of other smaller projects in the various MUDs that work with Missouri City as well, including new buildings, treatment facilities, infrastructure, evaluation.
so not coastal.
To answer your question, sir, I guess the answer is no.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious because maybe that in the future we need to make sure that maybe that's a qualifier, you know, in something that we look at because being from Abilene, I would understand that may be something you could miss if you're not familiar with doing business in a tier 1 type county. So, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, I just want to remark real quickly. I heard about a vendor when we started going through this process, and they brought up the vendor in Central Texas and North Texas, and I guess the I don't know, what is that? What is Abilene? Is that the Panhandle, technically?
No, it's in West Texas.
Yeah,
It's
West
not
Texas.
quite in the Panhandle.
And that comment came up over, and it's like, I feel like we stubbed our foot. Because you're absolutely right. If we had somebody more local, I bet you that's just on their checklist, and we just saw them down the road.
Yeah, I agree. No, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Member Berry,
Nay.
Member Owens, Member Kosa,
Hey,
is that a nay?
no.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Camcar,
No.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-3.
All right, with that, Mr. Owens, present item I, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report. Anything additional, Trent, to add to that?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions, comments on this one?
I just wanted to ask, it's kind of related to both of the items. I know we just voted on the other one, but we're still within the total budget. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The project is within the total budget.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not putting us over budget. We're still.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor. I was the one that pulled this. I'm sorry. It was same related question.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think he addressed them both together, so.
Yeah.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Good deal. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Owens, Member Kosa,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Camcar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Berry.
Nay.
The motion passes 5-2.
Back to Mr. Koza, item L.
Consideration and possible action resolution number R2023-86. So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is related to the self-assessment that the Pearland Police Department did following the school attack in Uvalde. One of the recommendations from that was that we add breaching tools to every marked patrol vehicle to ensure we have the tools available not only at schools but other potential targets. And so this is the actual purchase of 120 Pro Bars and 80 8-pound sledgehammers used for breaching in a situation with an active shooter.
Unfortunately, we need these.
Unfortunately.
That's what's sad. But
I had a,
I'm glad we do.
I didn't pull this, but I did have a question about
Real quick, I believe Mr. Camcar pulled it. We'll give him the opportunity first.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the mayor kind of said it. It's real, it's disturbing we have to have these, but I appreciate the chief and their team working on training. I know we had some very interesting discussions after what happened in Uvalde, and all of a sudden we did 37 or 3,800 hours of training in like 6 weeks. But the reality is time counts, and I'm glad that we will be putting these in strategic places. I hope we never, ever, 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 ever have to use this. I hope it gathers dust in a closet. But the reality is better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I really want to thank you to the team on the police side for working through this issue, getting it going. And like I said, I hope we don't ever think about these again.
I'm going to correct you. Hopefully they collect dust in the vehicle, not in the closet.
In the vehicle, correct. Yes, sir.
Cade?
I was reading this and it said I guess this is for Chief. The Probar, where did it say? I'm trying to find where I saw it. It said it was based on officer preference. I think it said they could use the Probar or the sledgehammer or a ram, dependent on officer preference. But then it said the rams required are not included in this bulk purchase.
Yes, ma'am. We partnered with Dawson High School and just bought the material, and Dawson High School welding team built all our rams for us free of charge.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Appreciate it.
That's awesome. And we started this evening with a public hearing about children, and I made my comments about we should do everything we can to protect our most valuable resource. And I see these as tools to helping do that. If we're in a situation where somebody is attacking one of our schools, and we can get professional men and women who protect our community every day in there and do what they need to do to get to our children and protect them further. So, as I said, unfortunately, we need to have these. And fortunately, our community understands the value of public safety, and these are types of purchases that are good, and our people will back that up. And as Member Camcar said, I pray to God we never use them. I hope they sit in the car, and guys have to move them around from time to time, but they don't have to be used. And I agree. I'd rather not need them and have them than need them and we don't have them. So I believe even last week in Tennessee, somebody had to go all the way upstairs and back because there was a door locked and they had to go a different direction or had to go get something, and instead time wasted. And time in a situation like that can obviously mean lives. So let's pray to God that we never have that happen in our community, but if we do, we have tools necessary to take care of business. So, Chief, thank you for you and your team for bringing this forward and always being diligent. When things occur in our nation, we look and study and making sure that our folks are ready to do what's necessary. With that, Madam Secretary, we'll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor.
He's not here, so we won't respond to that one.
Yeah. I had a question on, well, two things. One of the vendors put that the Probar was 120-day lead time. Is that correct for all of them? I know we chose Dana, but I think it was one of the other ones put that there was a longer lead time. Is it going to be that? Because it says per Firehooks lead time on Probar is currently 120 days. Is it going to be more months before we get those?
You know what? I don't know the lead time on it. I know he tried to find the fastest vendor.
Okay.
To get him in.
All right, that's fine. And then the other question was, there was like a couple $100 difference between the Dana and Casco, and one of them is in Texas. Was there a reason why? I mean, I guess it's cheaper, but I don't know.
I'm sure that's.
I kind of feel like
probably the price and how fast we can get them is what was.
We also already have a relationship with Dana Safety regarding some other material that we purchased.
Oh, okay. I just, I see somebody somewhat local. My tendency is try to keep our dollars as close to home as possible. But if there's a reason, I trust your judgment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
All right, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Koza,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone,
Aye.
Member Camcar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Owens.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, we'll move to forward in our agenda. Item X, other business, there is none. Item 11, mayor, council issues, city council discussion, there is none, which lands us at executive session under Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with the city attorney regarding legal advice associated with the use of city facilities. So at this time, 8:53, council will recess into exec session.
There you go.
City Council has returned from executive session at 9:32. With that, we will move to forward in our agenda to adjournment, and we will adjourn at 9:32.